The truck series are back, so we can officially say now the NASCAR season is underway, with threat of rain included too, but again, just like with the duels, Mother Nature stayed away once again. Still, I was really worried this race would be a follow-up to the Wreckfest that last year's edition was because of rain canceling practice for Thursday, and the only track time these drivers had were during qualifying. But thankfully that wasn't the case. While the racing was still aggressive, there weren't any major accidents or overstepping boundaries for the most part. Things got a little messy towards the end, but we had lots of pushing and shoving, lane switching, lead changes, three white racing. We even had some green flag pit stops to go along with that. Hell, even when they were 4 wide with about 20 to go, they kept it clean when I fully expected them to wreck. Speaking of wrecks, the only incidents we saw for most of the race were single car crashes where one truck got loose coming off of turn 4, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but it may be a sign that the track surface is starting to age similar to how it was back in the mid to late 2000s. And if that's the case, then you saw how awesome and pure the racing was back during those years. Again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we might just start seeing some shades of old Daytona, as fans like to call it, in the coming years. It really sucks that Caden Honeycutt was one of those trucks who wrecked out on their own. He was actually the first caution of the race. I just came home from work to watch the end of stage 1, and I was greeted with a replay of the wreck, so it was not a fun moment for me, and not a good start to the season for Honeycutt either. Another guy who didn't have a good start to his season was Connor Mosack. As a matter of fact, his season started about 20 laps late because his truck would not start after the command to fire engines and had to be taken back to the garage. Again, you gotta give these guys more practice to hopefully prevent these mechanical failures from happening. Tony Breidinger, she also looked to have a rough start to the season. Like Honeycutt, she was another one of those single car wrecks where she got loose off turn 4. However, she didn't hit the wall head on and she was able to continue. She fell a lap down, but she battled back and she put herself in the top 10, or battling for a top 10 spot. She was running like 11th or 12th before green flag pit stops, and she was on pace to have a solid outing before she got caught in that multi-car wreck late in the race, and she just arca braked the heck out of Raja Karup's truck. Square on the back bumper, she hit him and sent the 71 crashing hard. And then, not only did that ruin her chances at a decent finish, but it also put a damper on what would have otherwise been a pretty impressive outing for her. Now, as the race wound down, it looked like the outside lane had the advantage, but with about 5 to go, the inside lane made a huge comeback and broke even again. A third lane in the middle was also starting to form around mid-pack. And just like the second duel last night, this race ended under caution due to a last lap multi-car wreck. Only this time, NASCAR actually threw the caution well before the leader crossed the start-finish line. And while some people may still be mad at NASCAR not letting them race back to the line, at least this time it was more justified. And personally, I don't think anyone was taking that win away from Kligerman the moment that wreck happened. At least, no one on the track. Off the track, it's another story, but Corey Heim was there at the end, but it ended up being deja vu for him, or at least that's what we thought. For the second straight year, he got finished second after a last lap crash, ended the race under caution, because if you remember last year, there was a huge wreck on the last lap. There was cars flipping, even trucks flipping on the last lap, and Corey Heim ended up finishing second behind the race winner Nick Sanchez. So we go another year, same old result for Corey Heim. He finishes second behind the race winner, and the entire field wrecks on the last lap. And I was just so happy that it was Kligerman who won the race, because after all the controversy of last night and how it gave me and other people flashbacks of Kligerman being robbed of his first Xfinity win last year, or what would have been his first Xfinity win last year, because it was taken away from him. At least I thought they couldn't take this one away from him. Again, that's what I would like to say. I would have loved to go to sleep knowing that Kligerman won, but as post-race inspection finalized, it was revealed that the 75 truck was too low on the right rear. And because of that, he was disqualified and Corey Haim ended up being awarded the win. I have no words. I literally was even tweeting out on social media, no one's taking this one away from him. And while I knew, post-race inspection was a thing, and you cannot always, start celebrating. The real celebration starts when post-race inspection ends. I didn't really think anyone would get disqualified on literal race number 1 of the year, much less the eventual race winner. Like, you guys don't know how rare or relatively rare disqualifications are. We usually don't expect it. Like, it sucks when it happens, but it's something like we don't expect to happen every single week. And this just sucks for Parker. I swear, the guy has just had terrible luck this past 4 months. But he went from getting a win taken away from him at the Roval last year, what would have been his first career Xfinity win, and that was already bad enough, don't get me wrong. I mean, I even said it, I believe, I was even talking about that yesterday when the whole situation, when we thought Eric Jones had won, and it was awarded to Cindric. That Eric Jones robbery was even worse than what happened to Kligerman, because at least with Kligerman, at least he had a chance to still win the race in overtime. Of course, it didn't end up being the case, but at least he had a chance to win. But this time, just like what happened with Eric Jones last night, this time it's even worse because he won the race outright and he got it just stripped away from him because his car, or his truck in this case, got disqualified. Oh well. Anyways, speaking of drivers that actually had a good start to the season and their trucks didn't get disqualified, thanks to the Kligerman disqualification, like I already said, Corey Haim has been awarded the win. So he's already locked into the playoffs. Not that we expected otherwise from him. But regardless, it's a great start to the season for him. And I have no doubt this will be the first of many wins for Haim this season. I already have him penciled in for at least 5 to 6 wins for this year, no cap. That's just how many wins. That's just how many times I think he's gonna win. That's just how confident I am in this kid. But his new teammate, Gio Ruggiero, really surprised me. He didn't make much noise during the first half, but in the last 20 laps, when he got up to the front on the outside lane, he held the lead for quite a good chunk of laps. And even when he got shuffled out with less than 10 to go, he came back by forming a third lane in the middle, and he used that momentum to propel himself to a second place finish and make it a 1-2 for Tricon at the end. Another duo that really turned some heads for me was the Front Row Motorsports duo of Chandler Smith and Lane Riggs. They worked so well together, and they even stayed in the front for a big portion of the race, with Chandler even leading the most laps and finishing 6th, while Lane Riggs, he got involved in that last lap wreck, yeah, but he still finished 13th. And on that same token, Frankie Muniz, he spent the entire race just like Malcolm in the middle, but that last lap carnage allowed him to snag a top 10 out of it. And that's honestly just about the only good thing that came out of the Kligerman DQ, because Muniz was scored 11th before then, but because of the DQ, he was moved up to a top 10. Regardless, this was a great outing for him, top 10 or not. And Rion Brothers Racing, they look much improved this season compared to years past. Muniz qualified a very solid 14th, and all 3 of their trucks finished in the top 20 as well. I don't know if it's because they're getting more support from Ford now. I think that I definitely think Ford, they've definitely played a hand in them having better cars and more raw speed. But regardless, I'm looking forward to see what they can do this season with Frankie. Another Ford team that had a great outing was Thor Sport Racing. This team made history by fielding 4 Truck Series champions for the first time in NASCAR history. And all 4 of those guys look really strong all race. First of all, they swept the front row on qualifying, with Ben Rhodes on the pole and the defending champion Ty Majeski in second. And they followed that up with a sweep of the stages, with Rhodes himself winning stage 1 and then finishing second in stage 2 to his teammate Matt Crafton. Majeski, he also got a ton of stage points as well, and even Johnny Sauter ran well, and he held his own pretty good for parts of the race when he linked up with his teammates. And of course, they didn't get the results they deserved. Their highest finisher was Ty Majeski in third. But Rhodes and Stoddard, they were in contention to win on the last lap before all that pushing and shoving led to them making contact that sent the 99 spinning and the 66 to the apron. And that led to both of them finishing outside the top 15. Crafton also had a couple of mechanical issues throughout the race. He made a few more pit stops compared to the rest of the field, which contributed to his day being up and down up until he got involved in that same multi-car wreck that Breininger was also involved in. And he finished outside the top 25, but hey, he won the stage, so the old man still got it. Speaking of the old guys, I can't forget about the man himself, Norm Benning. A really strong performance from him. He qualified 22nd, which is pretty well for his standards, and he ran a really quiet and clean race, keeping his car in one piece and finishing 16th. And with that, the 73-year-old became the oldest driver in NASCAR history to finish a National Series race on the lead lap. Shout out to Trey Ryan for NASCAR Insights, by the way, for digging up that cool stat for us. Overall, this was a very solid race. One of the best Daytona truck races I've watched in the past 7 years from start to finish. Mainly because it didn't go to overtime and there weren't that many wrecked cars compared to years past. That being said, I just have no words for Parker Kligerman. Again, he has to be the most cursed / unluckiest driver in recent NASCAR history by far. Well, at least the team, Henderson Motorsports, they announced that they will appeal and hopefully they win, but considering Parker's luck, I won't get my hopes up too much. But still, we already got enough controversy for an entire race week. The only thing we need now is some BS happening in Xfinity where the guy who crosses the line first does not win. If that happens, I don't know, I might spontaneously combust.